The next game we're looking at is, I would say, the new SEC podcast game of the week. I think it's a game of the week across the nation. I almost should call it SEC bias here, but 8 LSU versus 14 Texas A&M. The line for this game is A&M 2.5-point favorites. Over under is 53.5.
Yeah, it's a big test for both teams. I think, right now, we mentioned it in our last episode, they're both kind of up there for first in the SEC. They haven't lost an SEC game yet. Whoever wins this game is really poised to make that SEC championship game and is really sitting in a good position to make the playoffs in general. LSU has some tough games ahead. They play Alabama. A&M has Texas at the end of the season. But winning this one is such a huge resume booster. But you have a tale of two different teams. Yeah. LSU, such a pass-heavy team. Nussmeier right now third in the country on passing attempts. They love to pass the ball. A&M, on the other hand, would love it if the whole game just stayed on the ground from both sides. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how this one plays out from the two different types of play style.
It'll definitely be really interesting. I was listening to the hard count with JD Pickell. So if you listen to our show, I'm sure you listen to stuff on 3 and Crane and Co. and some of these other publications out there. And I think he compared A&M's offense to barbecue. You go to a barbecue place and the rushing game is their brisket, right? That's their bread and butter. That's what they do best. And I'm not going to take his full analogy. And then I think he compared the passing game to kind of like mac and cheese. It's a solid complimentary, but it's nothing without the brisket. And so for A&M, the stories from the rushing game, Le'Veon Moss second in the SEC in running, yards wise. He's top 5 in touchdowns, and he's been absolutely dominant. Great football name. I mean, Le'Veon Moss, doesn't get any better than that. And so LSU's defense has looked improved, but they're still kind of bottom 5 in the conference. That's a wide range. And so this game, it'll be interesting to see what they can do against one of the best running backs they've faced this season, I would say, for LSU. So
what you mentioned on the rushing, I want to touch on that really quick.
Yes.
They do have a great rushing attack, but LSU right now is such a great rushing defense that it would be interesting to see if they can do both sides. I think that they're going to have Connor Wegman pass the ball because of what we saw from the rush defense at LSU last week against Arkansas, Ole Miss, holding both teams below 100. I mean, they held Arkansas to basically nothing because Jaquindon Jackson was injured in that game. I think that the LSU defense, while struggling at the beginning, is starting to find their footing. Good linebacker play we mentioned in the last episode. The DBs are getting better. I think that the LSU defense as a whole is a better defense than what we saw at the beginning of the season. But they have been in some shootouts.
Yeah. They have been in some shootouts, but I think that the difference we've seen from this LSU defense is that they've been able to make key stops when they need it, right? We saw it against Ole Miss. We saw it in the game, not necessarily needed last week, but just forcing more turnovers, making key stops. And so it's gone from this defense is a liability per se to it's more bend, don't break.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to force you to lose the game. It's not going to win you the game. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that the good thing for them is that I still think the jury's out on Connor Wegman. I think he's been playing good. I think he's been more of a game manager of late. He's not losing you the game. It kind of backs that same analogy. Some could say he does better just kind of throwing on the run versus, in the pocket. And so it'll be interesting to me. And one of the big keys, it sounds cliche, it's just is Connor Wegman going to show up to win you the game, or is he just going to be there? I think you had talked about it. We haven't had to see him win you the game enough. So I'll give you that.
Yeah, that was when I was thinking about this game, and I was, thinking about my score prediction and what I think it's going to be. We've seen LSU against Ole Miss, for example, go all the way to the end, not leading the game, but having some game-winning drives and being able to fight through that adversity. Not saying that Connor Wegman isn't built for that, but we haven't seen it from A&M yet this year where they've won a close game. They're going to be at home here. They played at home, against Notre Dame, so it doesn't say much. But we haven't seen them be built for a shootout. I don't know.
They haven't needed to.
They haven't needed to. So, you only play the team in front of you. But from Wegman, having that hiatus when Marcel Reed came in and played, I don't know yet how he's going to perform in the bright lights, 7:30 at night, if it is a game that goes back and forth down the stretch. Whereas we know what Nussmeier is going to do. He stepped up in the pocket many times, delivered passes. Kyron Lacey in tight windows downfield, like against Ole Miss. And I'm not saying that A&M doesn't have that. We haven't seen it, so I feel more confident saying that LSU is built for that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And why I like LSU more in this game, this is not a definitive pick yet, is we talked about, the quarterback play from Nussmeier. Threw the ball over 50 times last game. I mean, they're letting him sling it, right? It's this offensive line. It's been the story of the season. Will Shepherd is a top 10 projected pick. I think I'm pretty sure Nussmeier is never under pressure. This offensive line is one of the best in the country. I'm not just saying that. There are stats to back that up. Right now A&M's passing defense is around 50th in the country. So they do a good job, but I don't know if they're going to have the ability to create that same pressure on him, even with Nick Scorton, to disrupt plays for Garrett Nussmeier in this game.
Yeah, and that's what set them aside in the Missouri game is that, they had 6 sacks in that game. They were getting to him consistently. That's not going to happen here. Yeah. LSU, they've given up 2 sacks on the year, and it was mostly from players who weren't starting. They gave up some to South Carolina. They've been solid all around. Yeah. LSU's offensive line, and the worst pairing I think for A&M in this game is LSU having a good O-line and the A&M DBs being maybe the weakest part of their defense right now. Yeah. Their first 2 backs, I hate to call them out, Des Ricks, Jaden Hill, they've given up over 500 just between the 2 of them this year so far. They're not the worst cornerbacks, but if you have a guy who's able to sit in the pocket, let his receivers run more extended routes, it's not a fun recipe for cornerbacks on the day when you're chasing around and you're not expecting, quarterback pressure. So
especially when you got Kyron Lacey coming in there.
Aaron Anderson.
He's ready to hit that Sally on you.
I think Kyron Lacey could have a day here. I think Aaron Anderson could have a day here. I think that Nussmeier is going to deliver a ton of passes. Like I mentioned at the beginning, their pass heavy team, 63% of their plays are passing. They're gonna throw the ball. I like LSU. I think they're too strong right now. Key to the game for them is you have some upcoming freshman talent right now in Caden Durham. Let him run, expand your playbook. It's going to be easy to throw the ball. It's going to be easy to settle into that. Caden Durham, he's heating up. Let him continue to heat and get him going early in this game.
Absolutely. And I came into this getting ready to pick A&M, and I just going off of all of the things that I took into account when I prepped for this episode, and I just believe in Garrett Nussmeier more than Connor Wegman. I part of me is thinking back to what A&M did against Brady Cook and against that Missouri team. He talked about the DB play. They locked up Theo Weiss and Burden for the most part, especially Burden, right? So it's you see it outside of the stats you talked about for the DBs for A&M, but I am way more confident in Garrett Nussmeier getting his team in the position to score than I am with Wegman. I think Wegman's very solid. I just haven't seen him have to play behind yet, and maybe he won't have to this game, right? Yeah. If people want to make me eat my words, it's fine. But I like LSU in this game. I like them at 28-14. I think it'll be close. I think it's respectable, but for some reason, I feel like right now LSU's rolling. They've both won 6 straight. They both dropped their first game. They've won 5 or 6 straight, and so it's a similar story arc. Nuss has been cooking, so I think he'll keep cooking in this one.
Yeah, I like LSU too. A&M are favorites in this game, 2.5, mostly just because they're at home. I think both teams are evenly matched. I like LSU 30-24. I mentioned LSU too strong from a pass pro standpoint. There's time to connect. Unless A&M can get Le'Veon Moss going early, he's great outside the tackles. Let him get out there and maybe break out some runs. Aside from that, I could see some trouble keeping up. I think that the game will be close, but I think they'll have trouble keeping up.